Good to go? All right. Welcome, everybody, to Season 3, Episode 37 of Oz Media's Motivate Me 313 podcast. This is actually the season finale, not just for Motivate Me 313, but actually all three of Oz Media's podcast episodes. So, believe it or not, we are here and we are live, and this is going to be the final one for Season 3. So, we had to make sure that we gave you guys a show, one, that was important for the community, but also, number two, bring some guests that are going to be great for the topic that is we're going to be discussing today. So, we're going to be talking all about how to vote for this upcoming election, elections uncommitted, and basically we're going to talk about what's next and what does that mean. All right. So, we had to get some top gun hitters in the building today, starting off with Layla Elabed. I want to make sure I said that right. She's one of the leaders of the Uncommitted movement. She's also one of the founders of Listen to Michigan. So they're doing big things out here. So, we had to get Layla on the show. And next to Layla, and it's a little bit of a delay, obviously, that's what they're watching at home. Next to Layla, we have Lexi, a.k.a. the future president of the United States of America. Also one of the leaders of the Uncommitted movement, and also Listen to Michigan. So give them both, Yusuf, if you can, a round of applause for all of the great work that they do. And of course, joining me on the show is co-host Sada T in the building as well. My sister Sada Thabit. Abid actually had a class today, so believe it or not, she won't be involved in the final episode, but it is what it is. Shout out to Abid. I'm sure she's gonna watch it later. And so that's what we're here today. Like I said, we're gonna talk all about Uncommitted. What does that mean? For some people that are out there, may not know what that means. We can even chime in on that as well. And honestly, I'm here to learn. I honestly, me, myself, I don't even know how to approach this upcoming election. So I'm looking to hear what they have to say. They're not here trying to tell you how to vote, but they're going to tell you how to approach, the ballots and do what you have to do at the end of the day. But they're not going to tell you who to vote for. They're just going to tell you maybe how to handle the situation. And then if you want to know who to vote for personally, you can definitely holler at them later on after the show, and they can tell you who you probably should vote for, all right? Be sure to follow us on all of our socials. I know this is the final episode, but we'll still be active on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, all under Oz Media. You'll be able to listen to the show later on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. And if you, it was saying, look at that. Yeah, I'm looking at this camera because I'm so used to it. Sorry about that. And if you want to call in, if you're at home, the number is 313-306-1750. Again, 313-306-1750. I got my phone right here with me. Feel free to call in if you want to chime in and share your thoughts on this whole topic. Shout out to the sponsors. Want to give them a shout out. The Balkan House, Juice Box, Kahwa House, BC Adhesive, Specialty Medical Center, and Hanley International Academy. Let's go ahead and start out with Juice Box. They just opened their Dearborn location. I'm sure you've seen a lot of social media posts going about that. But shout out to Juice Box, and we're going to officially get the show on the road. So let's give a shout out to Juice Box, Yusuf, and let's get the show rolling.
All right, Yusuf, I want you to envision this with me, okay? Imagine you just had a long day at work, and all you want is a nice, cool, refreshing drink to top it all off. Do you know where you stop by at, Yusuf?
It's got to be Juice Box.
It's definitely Juice Box. If you're looking for a place with the best smoothies, milkshakes, ice cream, cereal bars, and slushies, then Juice Box is your one-stop shop. You can try things like their Biscoff or Nutella shakes, crepes, watermelon blast, strawberry burst, or mango smoothies. And if you're looking for a place to hang out, they have a comfortable outdoor patio/courtyard area that you and your friends can enjoy while trying those delicious drinks. So be sure to stop by Juice Box. They have a Hamtramck location right there on Joseph Campo, with more locations coming soon. You'll be sure to leave there with a big smile on your face. You'll also be able to order your drinks from the new Juice Box app, which will also be coming soon. It will be downloadable on all of your smartphone devices.
All right, we're ready to get the show rolling. Two things I want to mention. First of all, shout out to Jackie Zeidan, a.k.a. Mama Zeidan. She's tuning in. She asked, what's the number? The number is 313. I told you about the slouching thing. See, I'm already slouching. The number is 313-306-1750. Again, 313-306-1750. Mama Zeidan, that's for you. And then I forgot to introduce Layla as Nader's Super Duper Elite's sister, by the way. I forgot to mention that as well. He would be mad at me if I didn't mention that. So shout out to Nader, Mr. Super Duper Elite. The sister's in the building as well. All right. So with that said, Just let's start off with who you are, what you do, and just kind of go from there. And let's start off with you, Layla.
Yeah, I am a regional organizer with We the People Michigan, and still organizer with them while also, co-leading on the Uncommitted national movement. I've been doing organizing in Michigan and Dearborn in the Arab American, Muslim American community for a very, very long time. And yeah, thank you for having us on.
Of course. Lexi, I mean, I know you've been on the show in the past, but, maybe somebody that may not watch it or haven't watched the episode yet or doesn't know all the work that Lexi has been doing these last 9 months, 10 months. So, Lexi, go ahead.
Yeah. We'll share outside of activism, deeply involved in a lot of educational equity work across Southeast Michigan. Used to be a teacher and worked for an educational nonprofit where we just help close the educational equity gap for Black and Brown students in Michigan, but also across the country. But I think the last 10 months, a lot of folks have come to know me as the person in the streets on the front lines of the protests, demanding, one, a ceasefire and also, a path or a route to free Palestine. But have had the greatest honor and pleasure of working alongside my sister here, Layla, and our brother who's not here with us, Abbas. We call him Baba Abbas, where we've just been organizing the last 6+ months around trying to ensure the Biden administration does whatever they can as urgently as possible to save as many lives in Palestine through the Listen to Michigan and Uncommitted national movement, where we're still trying to mobilize the administration to now do an arms embargo on Israel to again save as many Palestinian lives as possible.
And of course, we have Sada T. I mean, this is the final episode, so I have to make sure that you say your hellos and just check in right quick, Sada.
Hi, everybody. No, I've been fine. I've been good. I kind of missed the setting. It's been here. We haven't been here in a while.
Yeah,
so.
The way it worked out. So yeah, we have actually been in the studio for a long time.
And I'm excited for this conversation. It's tough.
It's a much needed one for our community.
Very much needed.
Yeah, and then I'm honestly again, that's the goal today is to learn about what is going on and kind of how we should approach it. As Arab Americans or just people, minorities in general. Honestly, I feel like we're all on the same boat right now. We're thinking the same way. So we're gonna see how that rolls, and we're gonna learn right now. We're gonna get the show rolling and get the show started, and we're gonna start off with obviously this is a very important election, probably one of the most important elections. We're talking about both elections. We're talking about the one that's coming up next week, and then we're also even talking about obviously the presidential election. Mm-hmm. So why is this election so important for the viewers out there that might be watching and say what makes this election so different? And maybe this time we'll start off with you, Lexi, and then Layla, you can just add on to what she says.
Yeah, I would say this election is an interesting one because I think you're at a crossroads of two really important issues. One, an issue that's mobilized our entire, I would say state, mostly our community, Arab American, Muslim American community, which obviously is Palestine. And I think the other crossroad that's really critical and important for our community to be aware of is fighting fascism in November and Project 2025 and what comes with that, with a Trump presidency. And it's a really hard crossroad because you have people who are feeling angry and frustrated and upset, particularly with the Democratic Party and with Biden and the decisions that have been made, and rightfully so. And on the other side of that, you have somebody who's, is going to do worse than what we're already experiencing. And so I think it's just really important. It's an important election because, the silver lining, and it's really hard to find a silver lining in all of the atrocities and the grief. But somewhat of a silver lining is that we have seen people mobilize in ways I've never seen people mobilize before. But in addition to that, we have people who are being brave and stepping up to run as pro-ceasefire candidates, which, part of a pathway to victory, and by victory, I mean really getting strong representation for Palestine and Palestinian solidarity in elected seats is to really run pro-ceasefire candidates, which I believe is what I'd like to call an anti-AIPAC wall. And for viewers that are listening that don't know what AIPAC is, it's the American-Israeli Political, Action Committee or whatever it is. They basically mobilize and pour a lot of money into elected officials and races to ensure that pro-Israeli candidates are elected and put into office. And so it's a really critical time right now, particularly next week, because it's the primaries in Michigan, where there is a number of pro-ceasefire candidates from the federal level at the U.S. Senate seat race to congressional races to local races. And some of those candidates that are up against pro-Israeli backed and pro-APAC backed candidates. And if we want to start really building an anti-APAC wall, Michigan is the place to do it. I mean, we came out with 101,000 votes for Uncommitted in February. And I think Michigan is, all eyes are always on Michigan. When they say if you want to see which way the White House is going to swing, look at how Michigan is polling. And so I think we have a prime opportunity right now to really have Michigan be at the forefront, particularly for Arab American and Muslim American community members. Like, it is so critical for our community to go out and vote on August 6th, because we were so angry and frustrated at what's been happening the last 10 months. But at the end of the day, elected officials have the pen in their hand and are signing papers that are currently funding and dropping U.S.-funded bombs on innocent people in Palestine. And if we're angry about that, we have to go to the polls and we have to do something about it.
Absolutely.
I'll let Layla add a few more things in there, because I do think it's a topic that's so critical and so important.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it, Layla?
Yeah, just to add to what Lexi was saying, is we are in a moment where we can revolutionize our democracy. And looking at the Democratic Party, and I think there's an opportunity, not just in November, but in this upcoming primary on August 6th. And the reason why I believe that we can do this through the Democratic Party, and we can get into this as we continue on, but one is largely because we, as Arab Americans and Muslim Americans and marginalized communities, we often have flexed and historically have flexed our political power through the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And right now, there is not one Republican elected that has called for the end of genocide, that has called for a ceasefire. And this is not to say that the Democratic Party is our heroes, but we do have a caucus of progressive Democrats that have called the end to genocide, that have called for a ceasefire. And it is people like, it is the Democratic Party that elected people like my sister, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. So I believe in organizing through the vehicle of the Democratic Party. And I do believe that Michigan is one of those states where we can truly revolutionize our democracy. And that's what's going to be on the ballot on August 6th. Palestine is going to be on the ballot. Yeah. We have ceasefire candidates. We have pro-Israel lobbyist candidates that we really, really need to come out and support. And for me, I believe it's those down ballot races where we are really going to see the shifts and changes that is necessary for our communities, that is necessary to push a foreign policy that stops the collective punishment of Palestinians and stops the occupation of Palestinians. So for me, I think this is just beyond the presidential election. We really, really need to focus on these down ballot races where we are voting in folks that we can get behind in Congress and in our state and House legislation.
So what are some things that people should educate themselves on, before this upcoming election? Like, maybe give us some names of people who are, demanding a ceasefire, or just anything that you think like can assist someone that's watching this and saying, okay, what should I look forward to, first of all, for next week's election and obviously the presidential election?
Well, I don't know if I can give names, but there's like people that I know that I want to be supporting in the upcoming primary, and hopefully in November, our ceasefire candidates. There has been an amazing organizing that has been done in our communities, and there's a number of slates that are, in these community chats of, candidates like Hill Harper, and other folks that I think that we should be getting behind as a community. And so I would really like to pass it off to Lexi, because I think she is probably more in tuned on this than I am.
Yeah, I think with our uncommitted hats on, we can't actually talk about candidates. Okay. So just to share that
no problem.
with viewers. But I do think easily you all can search Michigan APAC backed candidates and like who is their opponent, and it's the opponent that you want to vote for, because again it's aligning to like our values and our mission of how we want to see humanity and justice prevail in our elected officials versus people who are being ran by special interests, by lobbyists, by PACs. And so just want to emphasize what Layla said is there's a lot of different organizations, trusted organizations that are showcasing or putting out like if you search pro-ceasefire candidates in Michigan, it's going to give you a great pathway, or it's going to give folks a great pathway on who to elect. What I can say is there is a critical race that's happening in Michigan, which is the U.S. Senate seat. And so I think from an educational perspective that people might not know around the U.S. Senate seat is a U.S. Senator is it's the second most powerful position after the president. And the reason why is because House of Representatives ultimately will introduce legislation that they cannot pass, but they introduce the legislation that gets sent to the Senate, the U.S. Senate. The U.S. Senate will have conversations about this legislation and decide if they want to amend the legislation, change the legislation, deny the legislation, whatever that looks like. And one U.S. Senator has the power to stop any sort of bill to pass, like just one. And so what I try to remind folks is U.S. senators have the power to decide how $7.2 trillion in our country, it's our country's budget, how $7.2 trillion is spent. And right now, majority of that budget goes to the Department of Defense contracts because most of our elected officials get so much money from contracts like Raytheon and other like companies that fund or create bombs that are, again, being used to be sent to Palestine right now. And so I think the U.S. Senate seat in Michigan, it's an open U.S. Senate seat that's happening right now. There's two candidates, Alyssa Slotkin and Hill Harper. And it's a really, really prime opportunity to elect somebody who's going to take that position or that seat for years to come. I mean, people who typically get in that seat, you're in that seat for 6 years, and it's very hard to be an incumbent in that seat. And it's an opportunity in a moment to put somebody in that seat who's going to make decisions on a $7.2 trillion budget that's going to ensure that money gets reinvested into our communities. When we talk about issues that we have, whether it's climate justice, especially in the south of Dearborn, or it's our public education system across Detroit, if it's the rate hikes that are happening with our electric bills, if it's the poor infrastructure that we see on our roads, whatever it is that we feel like we're dealing with on a daily basis, our U.S. senators are deciding how our tax dollars are spent. And so I think that's just a key educational piece that folks need to be aware of, and why we're telling people go to the polls on August 6th and vote. So like the thing about August 6th right now is it's a time in which not many people will go vote during the primary, especially because the presidential primary was in February. People are like, oh, I don't really need to go to the polls and vote on August 6th. It's nothing really important. That's not true. Your August 6th election determines who's going to be in the general election. And I cannot stress enough that all it takes, there is over 300,000 Arab American and Muslim American voters in Michigan. There's also over 900,000 Black voters in Michigan. And I'd like to say that same struggles that, the Black community is facing is interconnected to a lot of the struggles that Arab American and Muslim American communities 100%. Face. And so for us, I think if 30% of our populations went out and voted, we would win. We would get our pro-ceasefire candidates elected. And so I think two things: don't overlook the primary and U.S. Senate seat. It's an open seat. It's a really critical race right now. They could determine how $7.2 trillion is spent, which is inclusive of cutting off aid and an arms embargo to Israel, which I know a lot of us deeply care about.
You said to Google pro-ceasefire candidates of Michigan?
Yeah, pro-ceasefire candidates in Michigan.
And there's a number of community-led organizations and community-endorsed candidates that are, that have a slate of candidates that are pro-ceasefire, anti-war, anti-APAC, but also are really progressive about issues that we deeply care about. One of the issues that I organize around as a We the People regional organizer is around DTE. And I know folks, especially here in Dearborn and Southeast Michigan, are deeply affected by DTE's rate hikes and outages. And so just as we have, we are moving to make APAC dollars toxic, DTE dollars should also be toxic, because we don't need, candidates that are not, going to support consumer legislation or hold DTE accountable as a monopolized, investor-owned utility company.
And by the way, shout out to Mama Zeidan. Yes, anti-APEC wall. All right. She might be chanting that right now. I feel like she's probably chanting it at
My
home.
mom's my biggest fan, man.
Yeah.
Biggest fan.
Because she put like 10 exclamation points. All right. So she was actually, we're trying to get her on a show eventually, man.
She would not do that.
For real? Okay. Well, maybe, hopefully one day. All right. So, the presumptive Democratic candidate is Kamala, who, by the way, I feel like, that's like an Arabic name, by the way, Kamala. If you say in Arabic,
we know
we got some.
have a grandma.
Yeah, I'm serious. So with that said, just throwing that out there, by the way, it's just one random fact, I guess. But what are your thoughts? Like, if she was listening right now, because obviously she's in a very important position, especially for the Arab American vote. Obviously, Joe Biden was not doing it, and it's a coincidence. I mean, honestly, you could say that the Uncommitted movement was part of the reason why that. That. Can you give them a round of applause, Yusuf?
Yeah.
Man? These are some leaders of the movement right here.
Yep.
Her.
So he's no longer a candidate for the upcoming election. It's Kamala. So with that said, if she was here, let's start off with you, Layla. What would you tell her?
I think one thing that I want to point out is that it is a victory of Uncommitted and the ceasefire movement and the marching and rallying and all the activism and organizing that has been done since February, from before February, when, back in October when the ceasefire movement launched. All of this organizing is the reason why Biden is no longer the Democratic nominee for the race to the White House. And I just want to point that out that, Biden was already 4 points down prior to his poor debate performance. Yeah. And I don't think that we should underestimate the collective of our movements that made that happen. And for us at Uncommitted, it was never about pushing Biden out from becoming the nominee or the candidate in the race to the White House. What it was about is signaling to the Democratic Party and to Biden's reelection campaign that there is no way that he can win his reelection and the fight against another 4 years of Trump if he did not move on a policy that ended the killing of Palestinians and occupation of Palestinians. Yeah. And that's what we were able to do with the Listen to Michigan campaign with over 101,000 uncommitted votes right here in Michigan. And you cannot win your race to the White House without Michigan.
Yep.
If a candidate did not win Michigan, that means that they would have to pick up every other swing state in the nation in order to win their race. So Michigan is a very important place, and that's why it's so important. And I think if, message to VP Harris as the presumptive nominee is that, if you are serious, if you and your supporters are serious about your race to the White House, and you are serious about, the fight against authoritarianism and fascism that would come along even quicker under a Trump presidency, because for a lot of states they're already under a authoritarian fascist government in places like Texas and Florida. Yeah. So I think if you're serious about that and your supporters are serious about that, you need to listen to uncommitted voters. You need to listen to your anti-war voters. We have, at this point, with the uncommitted movement, not just in Michigan, but across the nation, we have over 730,000 uncommitted voters with 30 delegates going to the DNC representing those voters that are saying, you cannot win without us. And if you're serious about your race, then you need to move on a policy that ends the killing and occupation of Palestinians in Palestine and end the embargo against Palestinians living in Gaza.
Love that. Do you want to add on to that? Like, what would you say to Kamala if she's listening to this?
Yeah, I mean, want to double tap what Layla said on the victory for Uncommitted and the student encampments and everybody that's been mobilizing, because if there's one thing that rings true for presidential candidates, and this is like future reference, is folks are looking for somebody who's going to inspire them to go to the polls, not somebody who's going to create so much disillusionment that people don't even want to engage politically. And whether, people in the party want to admit it or, whomever, like Uncommitted played a key role and really like pushing Biden to recognize and realize there was no way he could have recovered from the choices that he was making. Like you literally let out a genocidal campaign for the last 10 months and expected to come back to our communities and ask us for our vote. It was physically, and it was an impossible ask. It's like literally asking the murderer who had a gun in their hand that killed a family member of like, are you willing to put the gun back in that person's hand and expect him not to do it again? And so I think for Kamala, if she's listening, it's two things. Like, what are you going to learn from Biden's decisions? How are you, like, she has already, what I will say, she's already kind of separated herself from his rhetoric when it comes to like the Biden policies. In her speech she gave the other day where she explicitly called it a humanitarian crisis. Yeah. She demanded for a ceasefire. She said we had to get immediate aid. It definitely is lip service, but I think it's more than Biden ever gave, which shows that she's a little bit more sympathetic and empathetic to what's happening. And I think our responsibility as a collective movement is how we continue to showcase to our candidates, whether it's Kamala or any person that comes next, is that we are looking for somebody that's going to inspire us to go to the polls and vote. And at the core of what we're doing and at the core of what we care about, it's human rights issues. And one of the biggest, oppositions to human rights issues is our Department of Defense contracts. It is our U.S., the bombs that we're sending. It is the aid that we give to a country that's a right-wing country with a right-wing leader who's, again, leading out a genocidal campaign. And so for us, we're looking for candidates who are going to come to our communities and are really going to inspire us through like human rights advocacy and showcasing that not with just lip work, but also action. And so I think the thing to add to Layla is like she has a prime opportunity to unite a very fractured party. Yep. And I think part of like
100,000 people.
I mean, well, nationwide, 730,000 folks that she can really get to mobilize behind her. But I think the bigger thing is like, part of like for Uncommitted, I know we're going to talk about what comes next with it, but I think it's two things of our goals right now are to continue to remain steadfast in what we originally aimed to do, which is save Palestinian lives and uplift Palestinian human rights to ensure that the Democratic Party starts to have better conversation around Palestinian self-determination. But the other part you do the former, the latter that happens is you fight fascism in November. And Kamala cannot afford, not even just Kamala, like we as a country cannot afford to lose the White House to people like Trump or Project 2025. Yeah. And the reality is the path to the White House runs through Michigan, and that runs through Dearborn, and that runs through the Arab American, Muslim American vote. But also noting that it's not just Arab Americans and Muslim Americans that care about this. It's young progressive people that care about this too. It's Jewish Americans, it's Black Americans, it's people from all walks of life. And so she just needs to be really strategic about understanding she has a prime opportunity and what is she going to do between now and November to really re-inspire hope in people who are looking for that hope. Like that hope feels lost. And I think it came back with Biden stepping down. And there's a little bit of breath, like it's a mini breath of fresh air. And now people are kind of holding their breath to see what happens next. And she has a really good opportunity.
And you said double tap, so I'm gonna triple tap, right, on what you were saying too, because I'm gonna be honest with you. We've had people on the show, yourself, we had Adam, we had Malak, we had plenty of college students on the show. We've had a lot of people who came on the show that, were part of protests or part of the encampments. And, then we'll post clips and there's a lot of comments saying, it's wrong for them to do that and there's no point of doing it. And this goes out for those people out there that, I don't want to use the word bashing, but kind of we're going hard on those people that were out there in the protests saying that there was no, impact that came from it. Well, here we go, and again, this is not about celebrating that Joe Biden is no longer a candidate. This is more about celebrating all of that time that was dedicated, all the hard work that was dedicated, all those students that stood up for, what they believed in, and then all of the community members who supported and all of that, and shout out to you two who started off started the Uncommitted movement, pushed it all across the country, so kudos to everybody. Give them a round of applause, Yusuf, because we you gotta celebrate these victories. I'm serious. Like honestly, there was a lot of judgment. A lot of conversations in living rooms where, is this wrong for people to be protesting? Why should you, what I'm saying? So,
they're not listening. They're not blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they're not listening. Doesn't do anything,
I think that's one thing that we and like me and Lexi talk about all the time is like, Uncommitted I always looked at it as the electoral political arm of the ceasefire movement, of everything that was happening on the streets, the rallying, the marching, the protesting, the bird dogging of our electeds. And I deeply believe that our success in earning political leverage doesn't happen without moving social movements, and social movements happen on the street.
Yep.
So, for me, we can't have one without the other. And I think that's, there's a lot of contention right now between, political organizing and activist organizing. And I am of the firm belief that we need both in order for our movements to be successful, in order for, political parties like the Democratic Party to adopt our demands, is they, adopt the demands of a social movement. And so that's what, I really, shout out to everyone that has been involved in protesting, and, a huge shout out to all of our brave and amazing students and students who were involved in the student encampments across the country, and especially here in Michigan.
A lot of people kind of see it as like, if there's not something that happens right away, it's not going to come regardless. They don't want to be patient with the outcome.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, that's something that we hear all the time. And what I have to say to that is, like, we are fighting against years and years and years of a U.S. policy supporting Israel.
Yeah.
This policy, it predates the genocide. It predates, a Biden, Harris, Trump election. And so in order for us to actually have the changes and shifts necessary for our communities to thrive here and at home in our homelands, we have years and years of organizing to do. It's not going to happen between now and November.
Yeah.
And I really want people to realize that no matter who becomes president in November, it is so important that we continue organizing, that we continue fighting, because we are fairly new. The political leverage that we have in this moment, and our movement for a free Palestine is fairly new in the way that it is in this moment.
Yeah.
And so, when you think about the pro-Israel lobbyists that have been doing this for decades, we have a lot to fight up against, but I think we are in a better moment than we've ever been.
Absolutely.
To make that happen.
Great points. We're going to take a quick break before you even think about moving. We're going to now, after the break, we're going to talk about people out there that are planning to vote for Donald Trump or the Republican Party, and we'll love to hear their 2 cents on that as well. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to a Specialty Medical Center, Yusuf. These ladies are already on fire, so we want to make sure that they're ready to go for these next 2/3 of the show. So shout out to Specialty Medical Center, and we're going to keep things rolling.
All right, Yusuf. So the other day I was playing basketball with my friends, doing what I usually do on the court. But as I was driving to the lane, I kind of hurt my knee.
Oh, man, not again.
Yeah, but this time I knew which place to go to that would take care of me the best, and that is Specialty Medical Center. Specialty Medical Center is a medical center that prides itself on patient care and its rehabilitation services. Their primary focus is developing a customized treatment plan unique to each individual patient's needs. Their center offers a full range of patient care, from diagnostic testing, pain management, physical therapy, regenerative medicine solutions, and surgical care. They currently have 2 locations, one in Dearborn and one in Sterling Heights. So if you're looking for a place that treats your medical needs the best, be sure to stop by Specialty Medical Center.
The equipment's fine.
All right. Keeping things rolling. Want to make sure that I read these comments before we continue. We just want to touch on some of these. So shout out to Munat Maori, great supporter, great person in the community. She is vouching for someone in the comment section. I'm not even going to do that either, but he is a great guy. I want to say that out there. But then she did throw out there that Kamala's words are not enough. Uncommitted voters need real policy change, and you have the power to end this genocide. So that's what Munat Maori said. Shout out to Mama Zeidan. She said, please get out on August 6th and vote. We have made some major changes, moved in the last 10 months. Let's keep them moving. Please, let's keep it moving, please. And then she also then said, it is college students who protested on campuses and everywhere that has saved this country from many things in the past. Power is in our freedom to speak and protest. Example, the 1960 and the Vietnam War. Bunny Burris 23. This movement is unprecedented. The long-term shift in our political landscape is for the good, even though this movement has its ups and downs. And then Mrs. Mama Zeidan said, the Uncommitted and Listen to Michigan is an unprecedented movement. Keep it moving. All right. So want to make sure I read off the comments. Shout out to those that are watching at home. Again, if you want to call in, you love what they're saying or you disagree with what they're saying, the number is 313-306-1750. Again, 313-306-1750. And then this is the part where we might get to ruffle some feathers. All right. The people who are trying to or want to vote for the Republican Party and Donald Trump, I think they're called Trumpites. That's the
Are
the
they
word.
really?
Trumpites. Yeah. So
My first time hearing that.
Yeah,
Really?
me too.
Yeah.
I've heard it. I've heard it a few times. So Trumpites, Hulk Hogan said it in his speech. With that said, if you are talking to people that are going to vote for Donald Trump and the Republican Party, what would you say?
Okay.
I know you're not supposed to, whatever, but say what you have to.
One, I want people to recognize, like, I'm the sister of Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib that literally said we're going to impeach that. I don't know if I can curse on.
I mean, you can say whatever you got to say.
So that's like one. And, I get that people are very frustrated. I get that people are feeling the betrayal by the Democratic Party. I feel it too, especially for a lot of us that came out and voted for him in 2020 based on the campaign promises that he made to our communities, that we wouldn't have to feel the dehumanization and the demonization that we felt under Trump and his Muslim ban and everything that came with it. So I understand now, more than ever, why folks are feeling so betrayed by the Democratic Party and by Biden himself as he continues to fund Netanyahu's war crimes against Palestinians. So in some ways, I don't fault people for feeling that way, for wanting to punish, the Biden-Harris administration and wanting to punish the Democratic Party. But also, I push back on that because I do believe Trump is going to be worse for our communities here and, in our homelands. When you hear about Project 2025 and you hear about how Trump, uses the word Palestinian as a slur. That's what he loves to call people bad Palestinians, in a way to dehumanize and demonize them, when being Palestinian is something we're very, very proud of. And that's why, often you hear people who are Palestinian, they never let you forget it because we'll keep reminding you that we're from Palestine. So I think, that's, his rhetoric that he spews about Palestinians, about Arabs. He creates a narrative that amplifies Arab hate, Arab American hate, Palestinian hate. But I also recognize that we're in an administration that hasn't done anything to curb the rise of Islamophobia and xenophobia and anti-Arab hate. So there's, I do recognize all of those things to be true. But also when I hear that Trump, made promises to his mega donors that he's going to annex the West Bank to be part of Israel, I immediately think of my family, that live in near Ramallah, and how much worse it will be because we've heard Trump say, finish the job. So I think those are very real things. And I also, I guess I would say for anybody who is thinking about voting for Trump, because they want to punish the Democratic Party, because they want to punish the Biden-Harris administration, I would just ask them, not that I'm saying, vote for Kamala, but also maybe use caution and restraint in your vote and really think about the full impact of what that means. And I know a lot of people say a lot of things like, oh, Trump just talks and Trump's, is all talk. But also during Trump's presidency, he also moved the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which was a direct attack on Palestinian right to self-determination. And also, I know folks talk about how under Trump's presidency, he was like the president that, dropped the least amount of bombs. But I think people forget that under Trump's presidency, Yemen experienced the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. And he allowed that to happen. And so I want people to be cautious about their vote. But also I am also very focused on, like, even if you don't find utility in voting in the presidential election, to please still come out and vote, because Palestine is still on the ballot in November, not just with the presidential election, but all of those down ballot races.
Great points. You want to add on to that?
No, I think, Layla, just this question is so funny to me, because like there's never been a time where Arab have ever fit strategically into a Republican policy agenda, like ever. Like it's never happened. I've never seen it happen. If somebody who's watching this, if you can find it and DM it to me, like please do that. Because to me, I see us being able to advocate for our community more through the Democratic lens or the Democratic Party.
Always say that.
Also, for the people that are like, oh, we should do third party, I'm not like opposed to this idea of a third party, but we are not infrastructurally set up in the next 6 months to just shift this entire country to get a third party candidate to win. We're just like, we're not. And it's not because like, I'm just guessing from thin air, or I think I'm smarter than I'm not smart when it comes to political strategy. But because I've been in spaces in the last 3 months where I'm seeing the data, and I'm convinced that there's nothing we can do to win that. And so we are working within a two-party apparatus right now, and our agenda and our community does not fit into the Republican Party of that two-party apparatus. And so for me, I just think it's like, people, you just react off emotion, and I'm a Cancer, so trust me, I react off emotion all the time. But I think for me, it's there is one thing we can recognize is that Palestine and Gaza and the genocide actually unites so many people of difference. There's a speech by Malcolm X called Ballot and the Bullet. Would highly recommend people to watch and listen to it. And he talks about how if you're in this space, Malcolm X was a Muslim, but in the Black community, you could be Muslim, you could be Christian. There's various religious identities. He says, if I came into this space as a Muslim, there's so many reasons why I would find differences of why, we can't agree on everything. But I'm in this space alongside you because I believe in Black nationalism. And if you believe in that too, then there's a single reason why we know we can agree and move forward. And I think the same thing applies in this presidential election, in this race this year, when it comes to Republicans and Democrats, is there's a unifying issue that we've all discovered, that no matter if I'm Christian, which I am, Layla's Muslim, which she is, at the end of the day, we both believe in this idea of Palestinian freedom and self-determination. And that's the space that I have to enter in when it comes to the political system right now, is if you are not pro-Palestinian, I am not, you don't have my support. And I focus particularly on the Democratic side because there's no Republican right now that is appealing or sympathetic or empathetic towards the Palestinian, what's happening in Palestine. Netanyahu just came to speak. I think it was 131 congressional candidates, all Democrats, sat out of that, where a few years ago it was only 56. I don't think there's a single Republican. I could be wrong on this, but even if there was one or two, most Republicans stayed in that congressional room, gave that man a standing ovation, and then stayed behind to shake his hand. You mean to tell me that you're going to go to a Republican side of the ticket and vote for that when they are giving a standing ovation to this man, publicly denying the death of Palestinians, and then turning around and asking for more aid to continue to bomb more children and more men and more women? That's crazy to me. And so for me, I think it's just, what is the single issue that is motivating you to vote right now? And if that issue is Palestine, which unless, I'm living in an alternate reality, it sounds like most people care about that. That does not fit the agenda and the advancement of Palestinian self-determination Palestinian freedom does not fit into a Republican agenda. And the only way we can make a pathway or a segue is through the Democratic Party.
Round of applause, please. Thank you so much for saying that.
there's a couple like things I want to pull out from that. Okay, and I'm gonna somewhat play devil's advocate for the people who would say that they feel the same way about the Democratic Party, that they think that there's really no avenue, and they feel like that, you know, it's almost like just picking the lesser of two evils. And Republican Party, there might have a better chance of financially being, you know, gaining in that aspect of it. I mean, obviously they support Palestine and stuff like that. It's just a matter of, you know, they are faced with, they don't think any president or candidate is going to help the cause. So why not try something? Because we just witnessed the Democratic Party for about 4 years and it just didn't help out. And why not try something different or go back to when, you know, money was at least a little bit better? I'm just speaking off what I hear from people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is what people are saying. Like, what are your thoughts on what I just mentioned?
Well, one, I just want people to realize that AIPAC doesn't just fund Democrats. They fund Republicans and Democrats. And Netanyahu has openly said that, like, he wants Trump to win. And I believe him and his right-wing government want Trump to win because they know that they will get a green light to do whatever they want to do. You know, they have this ideal of like a new Israel that includes, pretty much all of, you know, the Arab world. So there's that. There's the fact that, you know, and this, when Netanyahu addressed Congress, over, I think it was somewhere between 100 to 130 Democrats who boycotted his address to Congress. When he came during Obama's, during the Obama administration, there was only 50 Democrats who boycotted. So I do think we're seeing a shift. But also, I want to see Democrats, like, not just because she's my sister, but I want to see Democrats like Rashida be elected. So Rashida's not the only one standing there alone. And I think that's so important. That's something that I hear from her all the time, that why should we be the ones to lead the Democratic Party? They should leave. They're the ones who are not upholding the values of freedom and liberation and justice that are the core tenets of the Democratic Party. So why should it be the ones that we are to leave the party? No, those who don't stand with those core tenets should be the ones to leave. And maybe that's part of like the disillusionment that I don't have yet towards the Democratic Party. But like Lexi said, it would be, you know, it would, in an ideal world, we could have third-party candidates and third-party electeds. But unfortunately, it looks like third-party only comes around during a presidential election. We need to see third party able to win at the very local municipal level, at the state level, and then maybe we can see them, you know, a viability around third party candidates in a presidential election. Unfortunately, you know, between now and November, our system does not support third party candidates to actually win a presidential election. But if folks do decide, you know, I can't vote for, you know, a Biden-Harris administration with Harris being the presumptive nominee, and I can't vote for Trump, and I'm going to vote for third party. Like, that's how I can vote. My conscience is voting by third party. I just want folks to know what that means. That means that you're not going to be able to shift anything when it comes to the who wins the presidential race. But what it could mean is that voting third party has possibilities in shifting policy. Voting for third party could signal to the Democratic Party that they need to shift on their policy. In this case, shifting on a policy, where our tax dollars are being used to kill innocent men, women, and children in Palestine. But also you run the risk of that vote that could have, gone, and this is not an endorsement for Kamala. That vote could have been a vote that was a fight against, a Trump administration. So I just want folks to know what that means. But in all honesty, like I don't feel right telling people how they should vote in November. I just want people to understand what's on the ballot.
And that's what we want people to. I mean, that's the whole point of today's episode too, is to do that. And couple things. Number one, I think Lexi mentioned earlier that she's not politically, I think, smart or educated. You said something.
You are. I don't know why she says
that's what
that.
a politically smart person would definitely say right there. Number two, I made a mistake and said, you know, or gave a shout out to Nader. It's actually Congresswoman Rashida. That's number one on my list. Nader,
I love that.
I want to throw that out there. And then last
Rashida
thing I want to
top.
get, yeah, for sure. I got to give a shout out Billy Buckets. He's endorsing somebody in the comment section as well. But again, I'm not going to do that. But shout out to Billy Buckets. We appreciate you for tuning in and chiming in as well. All right. So we talked about Republican. We talked about Democrat. We even talked about third party. How about those individuals that say, I ain't voting for anybody. I don't want to vote for any of the lesser two evils. I'm going to just stay at home and just good luck with everything. Sada's raising
I'm going
her
to add a question to that too. Also for the people that say like, it doesn't matter about my vote. It's the
Electoral college.
Yeah. Vote really matters the most. So go ahead. Yeah. That's my
So whoever wants to start off with that one, people that want to just stay at home and then just see.
Because a lot of people are saying these words.
Well, first I'll plug for anybody that's feeling that way. Layla and I, along with We the People and Arab Americans for Progress and a few other orgs, are putting together a community forum this Saturday, 1 to 4. You can actually follow Listen to Michigan's Instagram page to find out more details on the event, where we're going to actually be talking about this specifically. But like, I'm going to keep my answer very short for this. Like the folks that are saying, well, for the, you know, my vote doesn't matter. If your vote didn't matter, then like pro-APEC backed candidates would not be in office. Someone's vote matters. Someone is going to the polls and making choices to put somebody in office. And so clearly their vote matters. And so when you say your vote doesn't matter and Layla says her vote doesn't matter and Omar says her vote, like if we all say our votes don't matter and there's hundreds and thousands of people that collectively think that can literally sway an election. So that's not true. When you say your vote doesn't matter, like every single vote counts. I mean, when Trump came here in 2016 and ran against Hillary, he won by 10,000 votes. When we ran Uncommitted, we said we were aiming for a margin of victory of 10,000 to showcase to Biden and the administration that our sentiments and our emotions towards Gaza and the genocide can truly determine how Michigan gets decided. And we came out with 101,000 votes.
Over.
These are 100 and of the 101,000, over 101,000 people who voted. People don't know this. 42% of those voters were non-likely voters.
And first-time voters.
And first-time voters. These are people, what that means is people who think my vote doesn't matter. These people went to the polls and voted, and almost half of the 101,000 plus votes were people who wouldn't have voted otherwise because they were angry, they were frustrated, and we basically provided a pathway for them to channel that anger and frustration. Now, for the folks that are talking about the lesser of two evils, I mean, I 100% agree. We are constantly faced with this decision of, vote Democrat or vote me because I'm not that guy or I'm not this person. And I think one of the things that's really important that people have to understand in movement building, literally, Layla and I discussed this yesterday with Abbas. Shout out Abbas, who's not here with us. We have to understand that in movement building, candidates come and go, but you have to learn how to build movement power. And part of building movement power is trying to showcase your numbers growing year after year after year. And I think a prime example of that is, again, I'm going to circle back to it, the uncommitted votes. That wasn't something we pulled out of thin air. When like the Democratic strategists that came together to think about this concept, they actually looked at Barack Obama in Michigan. You know, a number of people came out and voted uncommitted for Barack Obama. He wasn't even on the primary ballot. They voted uncommitted. And through like, you know, DNC, all that crap, because that's really hard to understand, by the way. That's a whole other separate topic. He ended up getting on the ballot and got voted as president in the general election. And so, and that time, I think like it was like 20 or 30,000 folks in Michigan that voted uncommitted. This year it was 101,000+ people, and it's launched a nationwide movement. And so I think that the feelings of not wanting to vote for the lesser of two evils is real. The question I put back on people is, what are you going to do to make the candidates less evil the next time around? Because it's a reality. Like, I can't change the fact that, like, okay, go back to if Biden and Trump were both the presidential nominees right now. I can't change that fact. I mean, we did actually. So like, if it were real though, and let's say even with Kamala, like, you know, she has a pathway and some time to really become an inspiring candidate. But if, you know, the election were today and she had the same policies as Biden did, right? to me, I can't change the fact that I'm presented with the lesser of two evils, but I can think very long-term infrastructure-wise of what am I going to do today to change the course for the next 4 years. And I think, again, going back to the fact that, like, don't just sit home and not vote because the presidential candidates are not inspiring you. There's down ballot candidates too. And down ballot, like the House, like the congressional seats, like they determine a lot. I mean, they create legislation. The Senate passes legislation to then go to the president. Like president, I mean, I always like make this joke, but like, does the president really think strategically about issues in our country? No, it's everybody else underneath them. And what happens is they just get legislation that they either agree or disagree with, and they implement it. So there's a lot to it, but
That's why down ballot races are so important. To me, honestly, I feel like down ballot races are more important than the presidential election.
I was going to say for the people out there that, you know, it could be more important because they have more impact on our lives than the president.
100%.
Yeah. But do you want to chime in also on?
Yeah, just, you know, if folks feel like they want to skip the top of the ticket, the presidential election, I mean, yeah, I understand that, but please come out to vote for those down ballot races. And I think there were some other points that you pointed out, Lexi, that, you know, people who are saying like my vote doesn't count. Somebody votes count. Someone's vote counts. People are going out to vote, and those votes are being counted. So why not ours?
I don't think they understand how the electoral vote is decided.
Yeah, the electoral college is a very complicated system, to be honest. Like, when we ran the Uncommitted campaign here in Michigan through Listen to Michigan, we never thought about delegates. You know, delegates to go to the Democratic National Convention in August. That's going to be August 19th through the 22nd. And this is where the nominee for president becomes the Democratic candidate for the party. When we ran Listen to Michigan and we had the goal of 10,000 votes, we were like, this will send a message to Biden's reelection campaign that he needs to shift policy because you can't win your race to the White House without Michigan. And overwhelmingly, we got over 101,000 votes. And I just want to say, like, how broad this coalition, not just here in Michigan, but throughout the state. Like, this is not just a Arab American, Muslim American voter issue. I just want to point out that Dearborn, where, you know, the epicenter of Arab America, we had a little over 6,000 uncommitted votes. And so the rest of those 101,000 votes came outside of the Arab American community, largely. When I remember the night of the primary, we were getting those first votes, those first numbers in. And folks who watch anything around when polling closed, Wayne County is notorious at giving their numbers very late. So the first counties that we were getting were Oakland County, Washtenaw County, and Macomb County. In Oakland County, which has a huge Jewish American community, and that Jewish American community threw down for Uncommitted. Like, it was just amazing how broad this coalition that was multi-generational, multicultural, multi-religious. It was so beautiful. And those first counties were already surpassing our goal of 10,000 votes. So I think we showed through Michigan, throughout the state, that this is beyond the Arab American or Muslim American vote. And people need to know that anti-war voters are going to show up and turn out in our primaries, but also in our presidential elections. And you can't continue ignoring our movements or ignoring our demands if you are serious about your race to the White House.
Great points. These are all great points. And I just want to read off this one quick comment where Nano said it's hard to have faith in any kind of government that operates like this. I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel that way, but I hope that what Lexi and Layla are saying right now are, you know, at least helping people to understand how to maybe approach this situation. And, you know, so definitely, you know, we're going to dive in. We're going to give you guys another break right quick. We're going to move into the last part of the show here. And we're going to dive into more about, you know, how, you know, do we believe that any presidential election will be standing up for Palestine either now or in the future, and chime in about what's next with the Uncommitted movement as well. We're going to give a shout out, Yusuf, to Qahwa House. the coffee that Lexi is drinking right now.
Really good, guys.
Yeah, so shout out to Kahwa House. And then we're going to keep the show rolling. So shout out to Kahwa House.
You know, if you're ever in need of some coffee, then you have to stop by the best place in the country. You know what that is, Yusuf?
Yeah, man, it's gotta be the Kahwa House.
It's definitely the Kahwa House. It's the first Yemeni coffee shop of its kind. You can stop by Kahwa House to try their famous Yemeni lattes, Adani shahis, mafawad, and jubani coffees. You can also stop by to try their delicious pastries, such as the Yemeni favorite sabaya, everything mini bites, and they even serve sambusas. They have locations in Michigan, New Jersey, New York, and Illinois, with more locations coming to a state near you. So no matter where you're at in the country, be sure to stop by Kahwa House and get a glimpse of what the Yemeni culture is all about. Also, don't forget to download the new Kahwa House app. You can now order your coffee and go, skipping the line entirely. It's like having your own personal barista.
All right, we're officially back. Shout out to Bunbury IST 23. They're endorsing people, but again,
Wow, a lot of endorsements
I
on
was
this
gonna say,
chat.
I was gonna say that. So I'm about to comment. Lexis Zeidan 2032.
That's your endorsement?
Yeah.
I love it.
Because I mean everybody's endorsing everybody right now. By the way, I found out recently that you graduated out of Michigan State. What year did you graduate?
2014.
Are you serious?
Did you go?
Yes, I graduated 2014.
Really?
No way.
I swear.
That's
What was your major?
Well, I mean, I communication, arts, and sciences.
So is mine.
Dude,
So we for sure have crossed paths, but like didn't even know.
100%.
Wow, what a small world. That's
And
crazy.
So, well, never mind what 2032 is. 2028 then. I didn't know you were that. 2014. I thought
VP?
you were-
yeah, I mean,
No. I'm good. I enjoy what I'm doing. I am not ready
actually,
for
I'd
that.
rather have Layla be the president.
Oh, no,
I will
thank
be her
you.
VP.
No, thank you.
All right, so I guess the next question is, obviously these candidates, I feel like they do a lot of lip service, even if they do talk about Palestine, or being, for a ceasefire. Do you think any of these candidates are really ever going? Do you think any presidential candidate in the future or now will ever support Palestine, or even just actually demand a ceasefire? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
So something that I said earlier, I think is also, a point I want to make again, is that we are fighting against decades of pro-Israel lobbying. And again, this is a U.S. policy that predates the genocide right now. It even, it goes back to the very, orientation of Israel and its statehood. So I think that's one thing that people need to recognize, is that we have a lot of years of organizing and fighting back. And we can do that through, if we decide to do it through the electoral arm, the political arm, is making sure that we are supporting candidates and electeds who are, pro-Palestine, anti-war, anti-genocide. And also, I think we're in a very, we're in a historical moment that we've never been in before. I'm 35 years old, and I have been doing Palestinian organizing for a long time, but I've never seen it the way it looks like now.
Yep.
Where it's not just contained within the Arab American, Muslim American, or Palestinian American communities. Like, there is, we're seeing it all over our social media of like these, our allies who are not Arab, not Muslim, not Palestinian, who are ready to throw down for Palestine, who are ready to throw down to stop the killing and occupation of our people. So I think that is a huge shift that we need to recognize. And it's not just here in the United States, it's global. The world is, we have been saying, like, the world is waking up to what is happening. And I also think that more and more everyday people are, also waking up to the fact that they don't want to see their tax dollars being used to support a foreign war, like to support a war criminal. They don't want to see our tax dollars used for a right-wing government to carry out their ethnic cleansing and genocide of a native peoples. Folks feel like we have problems of our own here at home. When you look at Michigan alone, we pay one of the highest utility rates in the country for the worst utility, with power outages and rate hikes every year. It's honestly ridiculous. And then you have, like, in the city of Detroit, where over 200 schools have been closed in the last 15 years. Flint still doesn't have clean water. Benton Harbor doesn't have clean water. Inkster doesn't even have a school system. Highland Park doesn't have street lights. Our roads in Michigan are still not fixed. There's so much where our resources can be used to fund our communities and fund folks here, and we don't need to send a blank check to Netanyahu or to Israel. Even if Netanyahu is not the leader of Israel, we don't need to send that blank check so they continue subjugating Palestinians to a racist and discriminatory apartheid state, or uphold an embargo against Palestinians on Gaza, and now carry out the genocide against those Palestinians. So I think more and more people are waking up, even if they don't particularly, in a dream world, people would want to stop supporting Israel because genocide is inhumane. But if folks, a lot of folks may not, have empathy towards Palestinians, or they feel like it's not their fight. But also, they don't want to see their tax dollars being used on that. They want to see our tax dollars being used to support our infrastructure, to support resources here at home.
Yeah, I think two things. One, definitely emphasizing, like, the world is waking up. A funny story, but it's like one of my favorite, like, things that has happened in the last several months. I was literally in downtown Detroit, and some, like, random white girl, kid you not, she's like, "Hey, Lexi, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Free Palestine," and just screamed, like, wasn't afraid, like, literally just screamed it in the middle of Capitol Park, and, like, everybody looked, and I was like, "Free Palestine." And so I think it's shifting, like, the way emotions and people are feeling towards it. Now, to the question of, like, do we ever think a president will, care about Palestine or shift policy? I think it's like asking somebody the question of, like, if you're sick, do you ever think you're going to get better? And, like, for me, if I'm going to think that there's never going to be a president that's going to, shift policy on Palestine, like, why would I fight the fight? You have to believe. You have to hope and believe that at a certain point, there's going to be a president that's going to come along and really make choices and make decisions that are in the best interest of the people, and that they're going to always center human rights first. And I think the biggest thing that, like Layla said, that's really important is, like, we're unpacking and unraveling years and decades of a systemic, like a racist system. And so I just, like, I tell folks that I talk to all the time, like, "Oh, we're never going to see a change." That's bullshit. We will see a change. Because if you're sick, you're going to take certain actions to remedy your sickness, to become and feel better. And it's the same thing for a presidential candidate. And maybe it's not, like, directly aligned, but it's this idea that if I see a sick system, our system is sick right now, am I going to let it get worse, or am I going to actively be the agent that's going to make it better? And I think if everybody operates with that mindset, at the end of the day, like, the many will always be, Jamal Bowman had this in his thing, the many will always beat the money. And so I don't care how much money AIPAC tries to put into our elected candidates. If everybody believes that they have the collective power to change the way our system is working, the many will always beat the money. We go to the polls, we vote, not money. Money does not buy votes. We go to the polls and we vote. The issue is we don't go to the polls and we don't vote. Like, the fact that only 6,800 Arab in Dearborn and East Dearborn came out and voted for Uncommitted when it's our people being genocided right now blows my mind. We need to go to the polls and we need to vote. And so I do think that if people mobilize and react to what is happening and be the agents that are going to change something, then we will see a president one day that will actually prioritize Palestine, but also just generally speaking, human rights and making choices that are not in the interest of monopolies and corrupt organizations and our stock markets.
Beautiful.
Any 2 cents on that side? I just want to make sure they
You
are
guys
doing.
are. This is. I can't wait to play this for my friends and I when we hang out because this is so informative.
By the way, I
Appreciate
just
it.
realized this is going to be Yusuf's first year of voting as well. He's 19 years old, so kudos to you.
Who are you voting for? I'm joking.
Good luck, Yusuf, with that as
What
well.
a shitty time to vote.
That is true. So, someone said my main focus is to know how to vote when it comes to those making important decisions about my children's future, example, schools, government funding, etc., within my community, state. That's a lot of people, honestly. That's what they want to know how, specific, more impact on their own personal lives. And then
I mean, people just want to survive.
yeah.
Like people want to survive in a country that creates opportunity for me to like see you, for you to see me, for us to be kind to each other. Like people just like nobody wants to live the way we're living.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be in the presence of a genocide that's happening. We're on our screens like it's like I make it a joke, but it's like not funny. Like I'm in with Layla all the time, and like I don't like to see Layla crying all the fucking time. All the time because
Bleep.
like sorry y'all. I don't like to see it. Like nobody wants to live that way. No, like people just want their basic psychological necessities met and create a world in which people are just like thriving and kind to each other. And I say this all the time of the issue with the Democratic Party is, I said this the other day, they do this thing where they give people a little bit of hope. Like, we're emphasizing DEI in the workplace. Oh, we're putting Black Lives Matter across like football fields. Oh, we're caring about these things. But they don't give too much hope because they know if they give too much hope, they're going to start to unravel the like corrupt system that they're working within. And I think you're in a time in which it's not our elected officials, but things like Uncommitted that are giving people so much hope. Like, the energy, Layla and I, like we'll talk about what comes next, but we just launched our second campaign with an Uncommitted, pressuring the administration for an arms embargo. The reaction we've seen from people in the last week, we were on a call together that we did for like a grassroots fundraising call. In less than an hour, I kid you not, in fact, maybe in 30 minutes, we raised $20,000.
Yeah.
Because people were so mobilized by this idea that we're fighting for human rights. Like, what a crazy thing to think about, that we're fighting for human rights. And so I think like to that person's point, like it's real. Like people just want their basic necessities met and they want to vote for something that's going to create a better life for their children and for their families.
But educating yourself is so important.
Yeah.
Because like people will just be like, oh, we got money when Trump was president, so let's, you know what I mean? Let's keep him on the like, or bring him back. Or they'll just be like, oh, the economy was better, but blah 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 blah. And it's comparing numbers, especially within the time of Biden becoming president this time, because it was 2020. That's when COVID happened and all that stuff, and and vice versa. So it's tough. Like it's tough to make like when whoever is seeing things, they're seeing things through like the surface and not digging deep and doing their research as they should. Yeah.
I just want to say also, and like this is something that Rashida says, so I steal from her quotes all the time because she's an amazing speaker, honestly, and she's very inspiring. But like she says all the time that like elected officials and who sits in in the seat of the White House and who's in Congress, when Black folks wanted the Civil Rights Act, it wasn't because electeds woke up one day and said, oh, like Black folks deserve to have, to have equal rights and we should be passing the Civil Rights Act. It wasn't because they woke up and decided that that's what Black folks deserved. Mm-hmm. It was literally because of the organizing and the fighting back that happened, not just on the street, but also in the ballot box. And so I really want people, to really understand that there is room to make a difference through electoral organizing and through electoral politics. Mm-hmm.
Layla, is this your first time on the podcast show? Because you did a very good job. You're being very smooth. I might actually have to
Layla's famous.
move you up in the rankings.
Layla's famous.
Later, might have to drop a couple spots. Couple of quick comments. Vote, baby, vote, said Julia. Then Mama Zeidan said, correction, this is a great time to vote. This is going to be the time we make our world better and the moment we free Palestine. So
that must have been when I told your brother it was a shitty time to vote.
I was looking at you. And then Burnberry was just kind of quoting you, I believe, just saying officials don't want to get too much hope or they'll upset the corrupt system. Yes, that's why movements like Uncommitted are such a breath of fresh air. And so
that.
that call was amazing. People do want to see something. People want to do something and see change. Layla is famous. You want her back. Yes.
Yeah.
So this Bunbury might be a Layla fan or family.
Yes.
You think it's Congresswoman Rashida? Just
I don't think so. She just called me.
Oh, okay. Well, tell her to call in. And
I'm
say
pretty
hello.
sure Congresswoman Rashida is trying to save the world at this
She's
very
too busy
moment.
to be on a burner account making comments.
With that said, this is the uncommitted question. And honestly, I guess I'm gonna make this a two-part question, okay? What's next for Uncommitted? And are we running with this even up to the election?
Well, I can answer the first part or the second part. I'm sorry. Uncommitted is not an option on the ballot in November.
Okay. I didn't know.
So I think, voters are going to have to go in and vote their conscience. And that's why I think it's really important that folks are educated about what each of their possibility of their votes mean, whether it's voting for Trump or voting for Kamala or voting for
Third party.
third party. And I think we tried our best to explain what each of those could mean. But yeah, uncommitted is, not an option.
Okay.
But definitely I think where, the message of uncommitted in fighting the U.S. policy that supports Israel's war crimes is going to be on the ballot in a different form. And that is those down ballot races. That is voting for people like Rashida, and voting for, that slate of ceasefire, anti-war, anti-genocide, pro-Palestinian candidates that, with easy search, you could definitely find out who those folks are.
What's next for Uncommitted?
Yeah, I can
Lexi?
answer the first question. I think an important point to make before diving in is when Uncommitted started, it started with this intention and this goal to save Palestinian lives. It was never
And also, there was no plan to take it beyond Michigan.
yeah. I promise you all, because Michigan's a swing state. And so they swing state, first state that had a primary. And we said this is a great opportunity to send a message of let's do this and see what happens.
And the fact that Michigan has the largest concentration of Arab Americans and Muslim Americans that are impacted by what happens. It's our community that knows firsthand the impact of American-funded bombing.
Yeah, 100%. And so our goal again was to really influence the administration in relation to how they are currently making decisions of what's happening in Palestine and in Gaza. And I mean, it went beyond what we ever believed it to be, especially with getting the delegates. And there's also this harsh reality we had to wrestle with that 2 months after Michigan's primary, a ceasefire still has not still didn't happen. And what we had to wrestle with for a hot minute was we created so much momentum on the grassroots ground level side, which is so important. But how do we keep people engaged to understand that the movement doesn't end here? And just because we didn't get a ceasefire yet does not mean that the infrastructure is gone. And what I gave that background because part of what we've inherited with Uncommitted is this responsibility that we never signed up for, but it's also a responsibility that we're carrying and we have to live up to in relation to helping people understand, which I'm grateful for this podcast and grateful that we could take clips of this and post it in spaces because I think you asked really great questions. We have a responsibility to just inform people. Our job, we were on a call, Layla and I, by the way, just side funny note, we were on a call and we've become the dynamic duo. There's literally people in the chat who are we're waiting for Lexi and Layla to tell us what to do. Yeah. No, we're not
it's not just in the
we're
chat,
not
guys.
here to
It's
tell
real life.
we're not here to tell people what to do. We're just what we think is our responsibility. And again, the entire team behind Uncommitted is just how can we create opportunity to educationally engage people? And we do believe it's on people to vote their conscience, as Layla said. And so for us with Uncommitted, it's okay, we have this responsibility and this weight we're carrying right now. One, towards the DNC. How do we continue to uplift Palestinian human rights and Palestinian voice to continue to influence the Democratic Party? Again, candidates come and go, but how do you start to create conversation that's going to last for years to come?
Absolutely.
And then also, how do we continue to uplift Palestinian human rights and voices into the November election? And so what I'll share, what comes next, if you actually go to our Instagram page, Uncommitted Movement, or actually Uncommitted MVMT, it gives a little bit of insight into like what we've just launched. And so what Uncommitted just launched, we went from listen to Michigan to then you had listen to Wisconsin, listen to Washington, listen to Georgia, listen to New York, listen to Illinois, like
almost every state, it feels like, had a uncommitted protest vote campaign.
Yes. Like it went from that to then what we had to do is we took this collective like momentum and we turned it into this national movement. And what we've been doing over the course of the last month and a half is mobilizing our internal team to think strategically about what can we do at the DNC to continue to like push on our demands. We haven't gotten a ceasefire yet, but we respond to the people. We respond to our base, and what we heard our base saying was, it's beyond a ceasefire. Like it's beyond that right now. And right now, it's like we want to see an arms embargo. We want to cut off all weapons that we give to Israel, because if a ceasefire is going to happen, we have to implement an arms embargo. It's the only way. And so what we did is we just launched a campaign on our Instagram called Not Another Bomb. I highly encourage people that are listening to go to our Instagram, check it out, because there are ways that you can get involved. One, you could donate to the campaign. Two, you can actually sign a petition that we just released where we're calling on Vice President Kamala Harris to pledge to enact an arms embargo on Israel. And there's multiple phone banking opportunities to happen between now and the DNC, where we're actually calling or bringing people into a space on a Zoom to do phone banking to their friends to get them to sign the petition. And the purpose of the campaign, Not Another Bomb, is literally demanding an arms embargo. It's a campaign that we're demanding ahead of the DNC. There's going to be a mass distributed day of action on August 18th, where there's 6 to 8 flagship locations across the country, where people will be hosting a mass rally. We're hoping people come out in droves in these flagship locations to ultimately demand our administration to not fund another bomb, that we are not going to take our tax dollars and drop any more U.S.-funded Israeli bombs on Palestinians, that we want to free Palestine, that we want to see Palestinian self-determination and freedom. And then I actually want to pass it back to Layla, because this queen is leading the Inside Delegate strategy, which is huge, to really try to uplift Palestinian human rights and voices inside the DNC on the Democratic platform, where just like wild things happen, by the way.
Yeah.
And she has the pleasure and the honor of leading that inside strategy, which is really important.
Thank you, Lexi. So we have 30 uncommitted delegates from a handful of states, including Michigan, where we have 2 uncommitted delegates. One of them is our amazing co-leader and founder of Listen to Michigan and the Uncommitted National Movement, Abbas Alawi, and Rima Mohammed, who is also running for a seat here in Michigan. She's also one of our uncommitted delegates. And then we have Hawaida Araf, who is our alternate for uncommitted delegate here in Michigan. And then we have all of these other delegates across the state, in states like Minnesota, where they have 11 delegates, Hawaii, they have 7 delegates, and these other states where we have 2-3 delegates, all representing this over 700,000 uncommitted voters. And this is something very historical. The last time that there were a delegation going to the DNC not representing a candidate or not committed to a candidate was in 1964 under Fannie Lou Hamer, who was leading on the Mississippi Freedom Bus Party. And this is the first time that we're going to have a delegation of anti-war delegates. So this is an historical moment, and it happened because of organizing to end killing an occupation of Palestinians. And so these delegates are going to be organizing. They're going to be organizing, with other delegates who are not committed, but who care about, ending the genocide. They care about, stopping the blank check to Netanyahu to carry out his war crimes. And they care about uniting our Democratic Party, and giving, hopefully signaling to Kamala that she needs to unite, that she has a chance to unite this party, and end the support of Netanyahu's war crimes. After January, if the outcome is that she were to win, but she can't win without the support of uncommitted voters. So they're going to be working with those ceasefire delegates. And the reason why I think it's so important that we have this delegation going to the DNC, even though it's very small, there's only 30 delegates. Right now, all mainstream media are going to be covering what's happening at the DNC. And it is largely voters over the age of 65 who make up the majority of voters, to be honest. This is why it's so important that young people and people, all people come out and vote, because right now it's voters over the age of 65 who are voting, and so who are in a position of decision making, right? And so it's those voters who are watching the mainstream media, and we're in a position to move folks who are watching to hopefully, see what's happening at the DNC, hear from uncommitted delegates who are Palestinian, Muslim, Arab, they are Jewish American, they are indigenous, they are, represent the broad coalition of our movement, to hear from them why they are uncommitted and why this is important to them, and how we are actually representative of the majority of Democrats, because 80% of Democrats have called for a ceasefire, and 63% of voters have called to conditioning funding, weapons funding to Israel. And so we have that opportunity. And also we are going to be calling, the Democratic committee, National Committee, to allow a speaker. It's going to be, we are trying to get Dr. Tanya Haj Hassan, who is a pediatric intensive care physician with Doctors Without Borders, who has seen firsthand the disastrous impact of the U.S. Policy decisions that has supported Netanyahu's war crimes. And so she speaks, truth to power, when she talks about what has been happening, especially to children in Gaza. And so we want to, demand that she has speaking time on the DNC floor. So there's a number of things that are going to be happening at the DNC with delegates beyond what folks can tap into as Lexi is leading on the Day of Action and Mobilization.
Again, give them a round of applause, Yusuf, if you can, please. They're doing an amazing... Like, the information that they're sharing is just, it's so important. I hope
it's a lot.
It is a lot, but I think it's easy to follow once you listen. If you're listening and following along, and you have some kind of background. I mean, at least education in this kind of topic. So just want to read off some comments before we move on to the Motivate Me 313-minute question, which is pretty much like the final actual question. So first of all, Mama Zeidan says, shout out to Oz Media with like 10 exclamation points. So shout out to Mama Zeidan. And man, listen, Mama Zeidan, she's the one of those people where you want to have on your side. Whatever it may be, you want to have them on your side. I'm telling you right now.
That's true.
Whatever it may be. There's a call tomorrow from 6 to 7:30 about Not Another Bomb, if I'm correct.
Yes.
That is from Kelly. Kelly's giving a shout out as well.
Shout out to our promoters.
Yeah, Uncommitted in the house. She said that as well. Then Julia did say we all stand Layla. So we all, want to be like
Shout
Layla.
out to Julia.
And then someone commented, do not vote Uncommitted, do not vote straight tickets. Vote for those who have indicated that they are not Zionists. And then someone did mention that Uncommitted is not even on the ballots. Then Mama Zeidan said they messed with the wrong generation. And yes, this is historic. So proud of this generation from the Uncommitted to Oz Media. She even gave us another shout out. I'm not just throwing that out there, I promise you. She even gives another shout out. To listen to Michigan, college students and beyond. I'm going to be honest with you, I agree with her 100%. There's like this movement that happened. I mean, we read about it in history books, and now we're witnessing it.
Yep.
I feel like we're a part of it. We're going to read about it in history books, inshallah, if they don't try to silence this movement in the future. And then We Uncommitted campaign created a political upset within the Democratic Party. We have more power than we think we do, said Monette Maori. 100% Monette, clapping, and then a historic and unprecedented political upset, which is, I agree. So with that said, Motivate Me 313 minutes. This is where we like to ask a question that hopefully can motivate people, and that is, if a candidate were to inspire you in this very moment, what would their platform look like? Lexi, we'll start off with you on this one. So what would their platform look like? And we call it a minute if you can squeeze it in a minute, but if you can't, it is what it is. So what would their platform look like?
I mean, for folks that know me, everything I've ever done in my life, from being a teacher to an assistant principal to working to a nonprofit to starting my own small business as a philanthropic small business, I center social justice and human rights in every single thing that I do in my life. Like, when everything happened in Palestine, I sat in that chair and I said, I'm willing to risk anything and everything for this. And I did. Folks don't know, like, I lost my job. And to me, I want to see a presidential candidate come to the table and center human rights. And for me, like, as a Palestinian, I do, like, in this very moment, I care about somebody who's going to center Palestinian human rights. But I think a candidate that's going to inspire me is someone that's going to find a delicate balance between giving every single person their basic psychological, like, needs as a human, and also uplifting and finding ways to incorporate ways for every person to just live their best self in this country. That people don't have to, no matter your gender identity or your background when it comes to the LGBTQ issues, like, these are all things that plague every single community when it comes to, like, the way that we navigate these spaces. I just want somebody to come to the table and introduce policy and legislation that allows every person, no matter what your background is, to live your most authentic self and to wake up every day and not have to worry about your basic human rights being stripped or taken. And I think, to me, like, that's, again, speaking from my own personal capacity, my own personal hat, like, that's what I deeply care about. And that's what I hope to see in candidates.
I love that. And then Layla, same question to you, I guess. If a candidate were to inspire you in this very moment, what would their platform look like?
Their platform would look like policies that allows for our communities to thrive, not just here, but also, abroad. I think that the reason why, people say, we should be careful about not being a one issue voter. But I think when the issue is Palestine, we often talk about, we're not free until Palestine is free. And I think that is very, very true. And when I look at how communities can thrive and how communities can have justice, I do see that, coming to a coming together when we think about the, liberation of Palestine. And that's maybe where we can see liberation and justice in other parts of the world and here at home and here in the United States. So definitely would want a candidate that I could get excited about, that cares about the dignity of all of us, and a platform that allows us to have our basic human rights. That is water, clean air, affordable housing, affordable utility, because utility is a human right. It is a necessity. And the things that we are fighting for here at home are the same things that Palestinians are fighting for in Palestine. And so that's why, a candidate I could get behind would definitely have those things in their platform.
Can I just share really quickly? Sorry, I know it's like a 1 minute. Motivate me through and three. They say, like, what Layla said about, like, a free Palestine is, like, free, like, for everybody. They say, like, if you build a world to, like, accommodate women, then you're building a world for everybody. And I believe if you build a world to accommodate and uplift Palestinian human rights and self-determination, then you truly are building a world for everybody to be free and to have access to, like, human rights and self-determination. So I do think, like, any candidate that comes to the table and says, I believe in Palestinian self-determination, they probably believe in the self-determination and freedom of everybody. And that's an inspiring candidate.
Yusuf, can you give that a round of applause and just give their whole conversation today a round of applause? Honestly,
this is a nice one.
Yeah, there you go, Yusuf. Appreciate that. Listen, for those that are at home that are watching, we hope that you at least have some takeaway. We hope that you can go into the polls next week and then eventually in November and know how to approach that just in general, the polls and who you're going to vote for. Again, just make sure that you're a little bit more educated on what's going on. I think that was the goal for today. Shout out to Layla and Lexis. They did a great job today, navigating through this whole conversation. And so, before we give the final word, I do want to say First of all, obviously, follow us on all of our socials. We got YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all under Oz Media. This is our final episode of season 3, for all 3 shows. This is the final one. So we reached that point where, it's time for us to start preparing for season 4, which will begin in September. But we'll still be posting, like Lexi said, we're going to have a bunch of clips from today's show. Inshallah, any clips that you guys get out of there, please share with us or, collaborate with us. We'll definitely share it as well. Because I was already talking. I'm like, dang, man, I don't know which clip I'm going to pull out tonight. I'm thinking in my head. But inshallah, again, be sure to follow us there. And then I want to give one last, people that, that say, shout out to Oz Media. Honestly, it's because also these sponsors, them without them, really, there's no us. I'm going to be honest with you, because their support obviously help us through getting this equipment and just kind of keeping us going. So shout out to the Balkan House, Juice Box, Qahwa House, BC Adhesives, Specialty Medical Center, Hanley International Academy, and we're going to even give shout outs to Unique Coin Island and Sidbees as well. Those you want to support Oz Media, support those businesses, because we appreciate them as well. Mm-hmm. Final words, final comments. Sada, we'll start off with you. Any final words, final comments, anything you'd like to say?
First off, I want to thank you guys for being passionate for these type of topics and being able, wanting to be frontline and talking about it and making it change and seeing a change. Because sitting here, I feel so honored to sit in a room with you two and to listen to you guys and to honestly just see that you guys, anybody could do anything if they put their mind into it. Mm-hmm. So I just hope that you guys keep being like you guys and keep doing what you guys are doing and honestly inspiring more people, because what you guys are trying to do is just fight for basic human rights. Unfortunately, that it sounds sad to say, but that's the world that we live in. And honestly, like I said, it's very inspiring, and I hope that God is with you guys.
Thank you.
And shout out to Sada, here on every episode. And so this is the final one for season 3. So I appreciate you, Sada.
Thank you.
As a
So
brother
fun.
as well. As a brother as well. Lexi?
I mean, honestly, I think just gratitude for you all. It's we can do all the work behind the scenes, but there is a reality that we have to get in front of people and share this message. Yeah. It's Layla said, we talked about earned media, and earned media really is what earned Uncommitted. So many, we had people organizers. Shout out to Mona and Julia and Erica and Fatima, Salman and Rebecca, and people that were
Adam Abu Saleh,
Adam, Josh, people that were on the ground organizing for Uncommitted. But there was another level that it went up to, which was our earned media. And so I just think I'm grateful for people that are taking their platforms and elevating these conversations and pushing these messages out, because we're also only a small number of people. Yeah. And literally Layla and I, we were on calls, and this is not a joke, from 9 in the morning yesterday until 1 a.m. And it was we had no break. And I don't say that to get sympathy or whatever, or to be a victim, but it's just we can only do so much, but collectively we could do so much more. And so I'm just asking folks to go find the pro-ceasefire candidates and go amplify their messaging, go donate if you're capable of doing that. Make sure you vote for them. Take 10 people to the polls to vote with you. Take this, take Oz Media. They're always share amplify the messaging. That's just, I really hope people walk away from this and just share as much as they can.
Layla?
Yeah, just gratitude for having us on, and gratitude to everyone that has been supporting our movement and supporting me and Lexi individually. And, I just want to say doing this work can be incredibly dehumanizing. Yeah. Especially as Palestinians and Palestinian women doing this and leading on this very national level where we really didn't ask for this responsibility, but kind of pushed into the responsibility. But I'm glad that if I were doing this alongside anybody, I'm glad it's people like Lexi and people like Abbas Alawi. And it is incredibly dehumanizing because we hold these identities where we're watching our people suffer through a genocide, and just that trauma is in our DNA, because we come from families and ancestors that have been suffering through this racist and discriminatory and violent state. And not just as Palestinians, but as an Arab community, as people with roots in the Arab world, for all of us. And thank you to those who give us grace, and I ask for grace.
Yeah.
Because trying to be politically strategic while also demanding that people recognize our humanity and the humanity of our brothers and sisters in Palestine has been incredibly, incredibly hard. So appreciation and gratitude for those who have been supporting us since February.
And of course, appreciation and gratitude towards you both and your whole team and everyone that's involved, because obviously you guys are the leaders of the movement. So we appreciate you all for all that you have done. Again, thank you everybody that commented today. Mama Zeidan said, you all were born for this moment, literally in your bodies, epigenetics. So there's just we appreciate you all. Thank you all for watching. We hope, again, that you can take something out of what was said today. Rewatch it, re-listen to it. It's on Apple and Spotify podcasts. As soon as this show ends, we'll be uploading it there as well. So, again, this was the season finale. This is the last time we'll be doing this for season 3. Appreciate you again one last time, Lexi and Layla, Sada as well, and Abid. I know you're probably eventually going to watch it too. I appreciate you too, Abid, and everyone else, all the guests that we've had from all the shows. Thank you so much for the support. We're going to try to continue the good fight, and continue to give our community a platform to share stories and then talk about conversations that people don't want to talk about. So thank you all for the support. Shout out to little big bro Yusuf T. I can't go out without saying thank you to him as well. Always in the background on the ones and twos. So thank you, Yusuf, as well. We hope that you enjoy this episode. This is season 3, episode 37 of Motivate Me 313's podcast. We're logging off for the final time for season 3. And next time you see us in the studio, it will be season 4, inshallah. Have a great rest of your summer. Go out and vote. August is a big month. I feel like there's a lot of stuff happening in August. So go out, enjoy yourself, enjoy your family time before school begins again. And we'll see you all next